Alright, so I decided to record a short video of the problem I blogged about earlier about being unable to install any updates for my graphic cards or any security updates from Microsoft, and with the Freak patch I kind of want them. And I was unable, which is what's most important for me, is I was unable to save anything in Visual Studio, which is the main environment where I work as a software developer. I couldn't save any changes to files or do any design time editing. I kept getting a message box that said that the file already exists, and it didn't say which file, and if I was looking in the event log, there was nothing, there was no error in the event log, even though both Visual Studio and the Intel driver utility update tool kept crashing on me. The log file, however, from Visual Studio showed me that it was a problem with something writing to the temp directory, writing new files there. And that's where I decided to check how many files I had in my temp folder. Now, temp folder is supposed to be cleared out, and it's usually not a problem. As you can see here, I only have 52 files. This PowerShell query will give you that. And the 52 files because I just went in and deleted all of them, so I can show you what is happening. So before I show you the creation of the many empty temp files until everything goes horribly wrong, I'm going to spin up Process Monitor, which is a tool you can use to monitor processes and what they do. When you start it off, you will have a magnifying glass here that's going to be on, and you're going to start capturing events from all the processes that are running on your computer. Make sure you untick this, go under Event and select Clear Display, so you start with a clean slate. And then we're going to set up some filters so we only record what we're actually interested in. And I've also made sure that I've unticked several of the boxes here because I'm only interested in this one, which is monitoring changes to files. And I've also gone ahead and I've added two filters. The first filter I've added is a path filter, which is just like path and is or contains or begins with, and I selected begins with, and I added the path to my temp folder. And then after a while I noticed that it was this one update.exe, which is an executable for updating Atom, which is also a software developer tool for writing code. That was causing the trouble, so I made sure that I'm only monitoring that process, and you can also add that here, some process name, there we go. So I'm going to select OK, and it's now capturing events, but none are being shown because I haven't started Atom yet. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'm going to start Atom. And as you can see, it immediately starts creating files, and it's going to create a lot of them. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of time as it's working in the background, and we're going to see what is happening. Sorry about that. So now it started creating these weird files I noticed here, and I can tell by the naming convention that it's creating a lot of them, and I can tell that something is a little bit off. Ignore this one, these are just, of course, node modules, and I really wonder if the file path name isn't a little bit too long on some of them. Tends to be a problem with nodes, nested modules, dependencies, and so on. The file path just gets a little bit too long. So it's still capturing a lot of events, and as you can see, the video is like 4 minutes. I've been doing this for 2 minutes. I'm curious, how many files has it created? So I'm going to open up PowerShell, I'm going to run the query again, and it might take a little bit of time because there are more files and I'm just going through them. I'm not recursively going through the folder. So I already have almost 10,000 files, and I've been doing this for a couple of minutes. This is now when it feels like it's getting a little bit weird. And I also happen to know that the files start with temp in front of them. If I move this here, you can see here they start with temp, there's something in between, and they end with temp. So I'm just going to filter out exactly those files so we can see how many it creates. And of course, give it a little bit of time. So it has created more files. We're almost up to 10,000. And if I run the query immediately again, you're going to see that this number increases. And it's going to keep creating these files until it actually hits a maximum. And if I remember correctly, the maximum of files, temp files you can create is 65,535. I think that's the maximum number. So it's when it hits that number that we're going to have issues running a lot of things on our computer, which is a little bit strange. And all the temp files are actually empty and there's nothing inside them. Alright, so we have been monitoring the process for a little while now, and it has slowed down considerably in terms of events we are capturing, what it does with files on the system. And I just recently did a count here. I didn't record that because it takes a while to go through all the files and check them, even with PowerShell. And as you can see, we have hit that max number I was talking about. So right now this is when things start to break. And I'm going to go ahead and go in Visual Studio here, and we're going to see if that actually happens now. So just created a brand new project, and I did this before I started recording and before I started Atom. And if I just simply try to resize a window here now and move this around and maybe even add something here. Let's see, I'll just go ahead and just add a button to this form, and I'll pull it over and I'll try to save this. As you can see, it starts spinning and Visual Studio starts working. Something is obviously wrong. It stops responding, as you can see, and this happens when I try to save. And sometimes it also happens when I am doing any design time. As you can see here, it says the file exists. Alright, so what happens if I just try to, close it down? Do you want to save the changes? Yes, please. Nope, same problem. So this was the problem I was having. I was basically unable to work, and if I do this enough times, Visual Studio is going to crash and it's going to direct me to a log file, because the event log for some weird reason is not capturing this particular error or incident that is happening. So this was the problem, and basically my solution until Atom gets updated, which is probably already has. I had this conversation a couple of days ago with one of the guys who developed Atom for GitHub, and he did a pull request at the time. It was Paul Betts, very nice guy, and he did it immediately, and it's a problem they kind of knew they had and probably just didn't make it the latest release. So I assume it's already fixed, so hopefully you don't have this problem. If you have a similar problem, you know how to debug it, and I hope this helped. I'm gonna go ahead and clear out my temp folder now so I can get some work done, and until I get an update for Atom, I'm going to try this later tonight, but right now I'm just killing off the update process so I can get some work done, because it's an awesome idea and I like using it. So thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful, and take care. Bye.